if you have good habits in one area of your life, like for example, me taking care of my diabetes, then I'm definitely going to have good habits in other parts of my life, like me trading. I'm going to be more disciplined.
Today's guest is unlike anyone we've had before. He is totally blind, yet he supports his family by selling options. How does he do that? Let's find out.
Hi.
Alfredo, you lost your sight in 2008, but instead of giving up, you found a way to succeed in one of the toughest fields out there, options trading. If you had to sum up your journey from that moment until now in 1 minute, what would you say?
Well, as you might imagine, it was devastating losing my eyesight. However, because losing my eyesight, I am uniquely positioned to do trading because I learned several things. First, I learned that if somebody else can do it, I can do it. There's nothing stopping me. And then I learned to adapt because of my blindness. You have to adapt to your blindness. And lastly, I learned the concept of inner locus of control versus external locus of control. So what that means is that everything good and bad that happens to me is attributed to me or it's my fault. I do not blame anything, any external source for what happens to me. So I always have the ability to correct any errors, for example, trading errors, because I have internal locus of control and never blame the market or my broker for things that happen to me.
That's inspiring. And we will, in this interview, cover your personal journey, what happened when you became blind, how you got into options trading, and how you actually do your trading when you cannot see. And we will also cover your main option selling strategy. But tell me a little bit first, Alfredo, about your personal background. Where did you grow up?
So basically, I was born in Mexico. However, when I was 5, my mom migrated to the United States. So I've been living in the United States for ever since I was 5. And but I have diabetes. I had diabetes since I was 5, and that really shaped my whole life because it was really hard for my parents to deal with me and diabetes, for my grandma and my mother. And it was also really hard for me to cope with diabetes. So basically, what happened is I never listened to anybody. And at first, it was okay because it seemed like doctors would say, "Oh, you're gonna get your hand cut off, or your legs cut off, or you're gonna use your eyesight." But I was so young that nothing. It seemed like I was Superman. Nothing would happen to me. But then it caught up to me. I lost my eyesight because I didn't listen. I overate. I never checked my sugar, and that's how I started.
How old were you
But
then?
when I lost my eyesight, I was actually 25. It was in 2008.
How did that affect you when you suddenly lost your eyesight?
Oh, that was devastating because it took about a year for me to lose my eyesight. But about 3 months before totally losing my eyesight, I was only able to see with one eye. And I used to remember there was a particularly nice mountain view in front of my house where there was a bus stop. And I used to see those mountains. And I used to love looking at those mountains because it was beautiful. When the sun would come out of those mountains, it was beautiful. But 3 months before I totally lost my eyesight, I was trying to look at the mountains and I couldn't look at the mountains. It was really devastating. And I promised myself that I was going to change. That all this, the reason that I was losing my eyesight, it was not the doctor's fault. It was not my mom's fault. It was my fault. So I had to change. I had to adapt. I had to adapt to the fact that I have diabetes and had to move forward. And that's what changed everything.
But where did you get the strength to take that attitude?
Oh, one of the things that I that helped me a lot was my then girlfriend. So I was taking care of her, And it felt really bad that I could no longer take care of her because I couldn't work. I didn't know how to live as a blind person. I had to adapt. I had to learn. So that was my courage. That was like my motivation. It was like I will take care of my girlfriend. Now she's my wife. So that's kind of a nice story. But that was my motivation. That was like that's the thing that propelled everything.
So, what did you do then when you realized that you wanted to improve your life, even though this devastating thing had happened to you?
When you become totally blind, you don't know what to do, right? So I enrolled in the San Diego Center for the Blind, and basically it's a center for people with that are blind. That's where I learned that if somebody else can do something, I can do it. There was I learned that there was a blind doctor, there was a blind programmer, there was a blind teacher. And I was like, if they can do it, I can do it. So that's what started everything.
Not letting your blindness stop you, you somehow made your way into options trading. How did you get into that?
Okay, so to options trading, it was a little bit longer. I lost my eyesight in 2008, but I started trading in 2015. So basically, what happened is that 4 months after becoming blind, I actually started enrolling in Cuyamaca College or my local community college because my mom always emphasized education. So I went back to school. I already had a computer administration degree, so it's a little bit easy to be able to navigate on a computer with accessibility software for me because I basically whenever I open any screen or do anything on the screen, I imagine like the Excel cells or the browser opening. So it's a little bit easy on my brain. So after going to Cuyamaca, I went to my university, got my bachelor's, and then after that, I got a internship, which became a part-time position as a programmer, and then from there I started doing full-time work and full-time my master's. And when I was doing my master's degree, I started researching statistics. I love statistics. It was awesome. But the way that it started, I started researching the NFL spread. You know how they say, oh, the Chargers are going to win by 3 points, or the Kansas City Chiefs are going to lose by 2 points, or something like that. And basically, what I found out was that the spread broke down the game in half. So what that means is that the casinos always won. 50% of the people that bet that the Chargers were going to win by 3 points would win, and then 50% would go the other way. Basically, that's how the statistics came out. So basically, what I learned was the house always won, and that basically, in order for you to win in the NFL spreads or betting, was like to have subject matter expert knowledge, like some knowledge that nobody has, or being able to see those games all the time. So that moved me into the stock market because I saw the stock market and it was like there's rules and everybody's playing by the same rules. And since there's so many people, it's going to be hard to rig the rules. And that's why I started trading options because I could use statistics and math in order to find that edge. And because I was blind, I was uniquely positioned to take advantage of that because the way that I trade is a little bit different. I don't get cluttered by all those graphs and lines and all those moving indicators and technical indicators. I always normalize them or break them down into their numeric y and x axis, which is what a chart is.
But still, I wonder how you do this, in practical terms. How do you read or understand charts? How do you follow the option chains and get all this information? Those of us trading options, we are so used to using our eyes, right? To look at the chart and look at the option chain and study the rules and everything. So I'm really curious how you do this in practical terms.
I'm a programmer, right? And I also do a lot of complex formulas. So I use complex formulas in Excel and also programming to to be able to set rules of what I can trade and what I cannot trade. And like I stated before, a chart is just a y and x axis, and it's just basically two columns and a lot of rows. And I just use my formulas and my knowledge of statistics to summarize the information. And I'll show you a demo later on.
But all the information and the formulas in the Excel sheet, do you get them somehow read out to you? Is that how you can understand them?
Yes. So basically, I have this special software called a screen reader, and everything that is in my computer can be read by me by the screen reader. Not everything, like graphics will be hard, but basically a formula is just a text file. So I'm able to read the whole text file. And that's how I just use the up and down arrow key and it reads it. And then with the left and right arrow key, I'm able to position my cursor where it's supposed to be, and then I edit the formula. It's just it's just about adapting. It's hard for sighted individuals to imagine not having sight and be able to do this, but it's you just have to adapt, and that's what makes me uniquely positioned to be able to trade and be profitable because I'm blind and I'm able to adapt to most circumstances. And the trading arena always is changing. So I'm able to adapt with it because basically I'm a living example of adapting.
That's impressive. And you have a demo for us that we can see how you actually do this.
Yes, I'll try to do a brief demo. Right now, is the
I'm
stock market is still live, but I'm not gonna do any live trading.
Now underline trade. ORCL A2.
So basically, this sheet
Symbol colon A1.
I have. This is the sheet where I trade. There
Mhm.
are 500 or 600 weekly options,
Mhm.
and every day I have a special formula. It's called
Security type colon C1.
security type, which tells me which options I'm going to be able to trade that day. And usually it runs from 50 to 90 stock symbols or options that I'm able to trade. And then from there, what I do every day in the morning, I always trade from 9:30 a.m. Eastern to about 11 a.m. Eastern, and then at the end of the day, only 15 minutes before the market. And the reason that I do that is because most of the premium for selling options are in the morning. In the middle of the day, there's no options. There's not a lot of premium for options. Sometimes there is, but most of the time there is not. And then you have to be focused on a certain time frame, in my opinion, because otherwise you're going to be all over the place and it's going to get all confusing, and then you're going to start losing money. So basically, again, I adapted to what the market gives me, and I only trade in the morning and sometimes in the afternoon. In the afternoon, most of the time is for earnings trades. But sometimes when the market gaps down, then that's where I'm at in the afternoon. So one example, for example,
ORCL A2.
ORCL.
51.0. September. Blank. 2, 3, 0. Blank. Minus 1.46. Minus 207.5. TF2. Contains formula.
If you can see that number,
Spike to colon.
the
Minus 207.5. TF.
207.5, can you see that number or no?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. So basically, that's the strike price that I'm going to sell based on my formula.
Minus 0.36. 223.39.
And this 223, but this is the actual stock price that the stock is at right now.
Minus 0.36. TF2. Contains minus 207.
And that's what gives me that number, the 207. It tells me
Minus 0. 223.
the stock is at 223.
Minus 0. Minus 207.
And in order for me to get a good margin of safety based on my strategy, I'm only going to sell the 207 and a half or lower. I wouldn't sell anything above that. And this is for Friday. This is since today is Tuesday, September 2nd. I always trade for Fridays.
Minus 1.46. Blank. C8. 0.58. 3 TM2. Contains.
And then over
Number
here,
of contract colon. 3 TM2.
this is a number of contracts, right? It says that I'm supposed to sell 3 contracts. So when I see this information, I call the broker I have to actually call them like the back when the 70s or 80s that everybody would call it broker. And the reason that I call it broker is because I'm adapting to my blindness. Basically, a lot of brokers, they don't have their websites accessible or their apps accessible. So it's really hard for my screen reader to be able to trade like most sighted people do, where they just click on it and just added to their inventory. Well, for me, I have to call the broker, and the broker is the one that executes my trades. The only thing about that is that, well, I can't make as many trades as I can. And eventually, I'm going to automate all this system. But right now, that is how I trade. Let's say that I'm going to trade this one,
Minus 2 number
right?
7.5 TM2
The
contains formula. Minus,
Oracle.
minus 0.583 TM2 contains formula.
I'm gonna erase the
Minus
3,
TM2.
and the reason that I'm gonna do that is because I'm going to execute the trade. And right now, this is a live Excel sheet. So if I execute the trade, it's going to go to my subscribers, and I don't want them to get that
0.58 TL2. Blank TM2 contains formula.
incorrect
Formula saved. Minus 207.5.
trade.
Minus 0.36. 223.
Because every time I do a trade, I press a special keystroke, which I program into Excel, and it will send that signal to my inventory list, which I'll show you right now, and then also send a text to my subscribers, which they can subscribe on my website, uh, and they can do the same trade as I did.
Minus 0.36. 223.39 TP2 contains formula. Minus 207.5
So I'm
TM2.
going to
Blank
do
TM2.
this, and so you see,
Microsoft Excel. Microsoft Excel text creation error. Semicolon text message will not be sent to subscriber. Semi virtual PC virtual viewer.
it says that Twilio is not going to be
Escape.
sending
OK
to
button. OK button. OK
subscribers,
button. Activate. Press space. Now underline trade. End of PC.
and that was
263.
expected because I didn't want to send it to
OK
them.
button. Activate. Press space bar.
And then this is the normal
Space.
screen. So
Blank TM2.
once I do that trade,
Current end of PLD 60.
it'll go
Previous end
to
of PLD 30.
my
Formula end of PLD 60. Weekly underline trade. End of PDR 1009.
with my
Semicolon A1.
weekly trade,
ORCL A20.
and it's going to be down here. You see how it is,
9/05 blank C20.
and it doesn't have the strike price because I omitted it on purpose so that my subscribers wouldn't get it. But
235.00
these
C19.
are all the trades that I have done.
186.00 C17.
Well, I think I did 4 today, and I did like maybe 6 on Friday.
What strikes me is that when you have to trade in this way, you also become a very disciplined trader.
Yes. Actually, it's not necessarily my blindness, but it was that mindset shift when I was looking at the mountains. Remember, I said that I promised myself I was going to change, right? So, in order for me to change, I had to adopt good habits. I have to check my sugar more often. I have to eat better. I couldn't eat like hamburgers or pasta or bread. I had to eat a lot of vegetables. So, that is discipline. Those are habits. Those are positive habits. And what happens is that spills over to other parts of your life. Like if you have good habits in one area of your life, like for example, me taking care of my diabetes, then I'm definitely going to have good habits in other parts of my life, like me trading. I'm going to be more disciplined. Like I'm disciplined in my diabetes, so I'm going to be disciplined in trading. Now, if you start with bad habits, like if you have bad habits in your life, let's say that you overeat a lot, or you uh, go to McDonald's a lot, or do not exercise a lot, and those are bad habits, most likely your trading is going to be affected because those bad habits are going to spill over to your trading, and you're going to say, "Oh no, that's not true." It actually does.
So now we've been through how you actually trade as a blind person. I'm curious now, what is your main option strategy?
So the main option strategy that I have right now is my weekly put option strategy. So I sell weekly options from a duration of 2 days to 8 days. And I count at least 2 days because when you, like, for example, let's say that I sell put option today and I sell it tomorrow, so that's 2 days. And I don't sell monthly options because based on my statistical studies, weekly options give you a little bit more edge, more premium than monthly options. That's not the important part. The important part about weekly options is because you shorten the period of risk. Let's say Telsa like at 320 right now, right? And then my strategy would say sell a 300 put option for the Friday. and I'll sell it. And then if I would have converted that to a monthly, it would say sell the 280 because there's more risk, right? But people do not see that there's even more risk on that because there's actually more days that information can come into the market and the market can tank. And instead of in 3 weeks, it might go to like 270, and then in a week after that, before expiration, it'll go like 250. And with weekly options, you minimize the risk.
Can you be a bit more specific about the mechanics of your strategies? How do you choose your underlyings that you trade on?
Okay. So that's a really good question. The way that I choose my underlines is first, I love large cap stocks. Large cap stocks, in my opinion, are anything that's 150 billion, and also have another tag for extreme large cap, which are 450 billion market cap stocks. So I try to trade those most. So what that means is that if I get a signal for Tesla, I'll sell more options than if I get a signal for CrowdStrike, for example, because that's not a extreme large cap. So that's one of the ways that I choose my stocks. And another metric that I use that is really important to me is the Almond C score. So the Almond C score is basically a study that was made about maybe 20, 25 years by a researcher. And basically what it means is that it's a number that's between 0 and it could be up to like 99. But usually it lands between usually if the number is less than 2, what that means is that the company is most likely to go bankrupt in 1 or 3 years, and it might not happen, but that means it has really bad fundamentals. If it's between 2 and 3, that means this is the gray area. It's okay, but not that good. And then if it's more than 3, that means a really good company. So basically, I do not trade any stock that has an Almond C score of less than 2.5. And if a stock like Tesla or Nvidia or Reddit have a Almond C score of greater 4, then most likely I'm going to add more contracts because I feel more confident trading those stocks.
What deltas do you typically sell your puts at?
So basically, most likely my delta is going to be between maybe 5 to 12%. That's what I figure. But I'm not 100% sure because I don't use deltas. What I use is the margin of safety, and based on the day, I add a margin of safety that's a multiplier of the average true range. Like let's say, for example, Tesla. Let's say that it's at 320, and the average true range is at maybe 10. Okay, and it's a Tuesday. So the multiplier for that, because it's a Tuesday, is going to be 2. And so basically I'm going to sell the 300 because 10 times 2 equals 20, and then 320 minus 20 equals 300. And that's how I get to my number. But usually that delta is always going to be between 5 and 12.5%, in my opinion.
And when do you exit the trades? Do you let them go to expiration, or do you have a take profit rule or a stop loss rule?
I usually let them go into expiration, except for earnings trades. Those ones definitely the next day I cover. I don't hesitate to cover them. But usually I let the stock go to expiration. However, when like if a stock is going negative, then I might roll for the next week. And it depends on how negative it goes. But again, that's another multiplier of the average true range. So like a stock might go negative 0.2 below the average true range, which might translate to like 1% down from the percentage. But I would use the average true range for that.
If I ask you to put your trading style on a risk profile from 1 very low risk to 10 very high risk, where would you put your put selling strategy?
I think my risk profile will be 4. It wouldn't be 5 because I think it's a little bit safer, but it wouldn't be less than 3 because I still trade small cap stocks. And those are a little bit more risky than large cap stocks. And even though I try to minimize the risk of the stock market moving too low for me for my strategy, sometimes unexpected things can happen. Like that glitch from 2011 can happen, and that wouldn't wipe me out, but it also might affect my system. So there's some things that I cannot control. So there's always going to be a risk in the system, and that's why I set it at 4. But it's definitely not 8 because I use a lot of margin of safety.
What have been your results of your options trading?
Although I started trading in 2015, I was on and off, on and off. And when I started trading back again, it was in 2022, basically that December of 2022. And I think my profit just for that December was like 0.1%. And then on 2023, it was like 2%. And then on 2024, it was like about 10%. And now I'm at 32%. And those statistics for 2025 are verifiable from the U.S. Investment Championship because I'm in the U.S. Investment Championship race. And that's what they set me at 32%.
So it's definitely a clear improvement year by year here.
Yes, and the reason that I do that is because my blindness uniquely positions myself for trading in the market because I adapt. I adapt, and then I always think, hey, if somebody else can trade better, then why can't I? And then again, I also use internal locus of control, which means that if I lose, guess whose fault is it? It's my fault. So guess who's the one that's supposed to fix it? It's me. That's why I'm able to better my system all the time.
What can other traders learn from your mindset and the mindset you have had to develop because of your blindness?
I have 3 major things that people can take away from this conversation. And basically, first is if I can do it, you guys can do it. There's no question about it. I know it's kind of weird because I have the eyeglasses, but I am totally blind. I'm not kidding. And what you guys can take away from it is if a totally blind person can be a programmer, a totally blind person can use AI to create a website, can do a options trading, can get a master's degree. There's no excuse for anybody out there that wants to be a profitable trader. There's no excuse. If you guys sometimes you might doubt yourself, you might say, "Oh, maybe I can't do it." Well, remember that conversation, that YouTube video. Remember that little blind guy that was able to do it? Well, yeah, he's not thinking of doing it. He's doing it. So there's no excuse for anybody to be a profitable trader. And the second thing is adaptation. You have to adapt all the time. When you're training, you have to adapt. The market changes, the economic changes, technology changes. Now we have AI, we have Trump, we used to have the other presidents. So, and then, so that means also that adaptation means if you're losing, what do? You have to adapt. You have to research, analyze, and implement strategies so you can be profitable. If you're profitable already, you still have to adapt because you have to diversify. You always have to diversify because if you only have one strategy, then that's not enough. So you do again analyze, research, and implement. You always adapt. And the last thing that I would like everybody to take away from this conversation is the need for internal locus of control versus external locus of control. It's really important. Like, this past April, the market tanked a lot, and I had a lot of my positions on margin, and I was negative margin, and the market started tanking, and I was gonna call my broker. I didn't call my broker. I called him like maybe an hour and a half after the market opened. And then they told me that they had closed some of my positions without them. They didn't tell me, they didn't call me, they didn't send me a message, they just closed them. So I had to reopen them, and that cost me 3 weeks of having to roll positions to be able to manage my risk. So what did I do? I used my internal locus of control and said, you know what? That was my fault. That was not their fault, because everything that happens to me is because of me. Is everything good or bad that happens to me is because of me. So basically, what I did is I implemented a strategy where now I always have a buffer that I never invest all my capital, so I have a little buffer so that will not happen to me again. But for example, let's say that I have external locus of control. I would have called Vanguard. I would have blamed them. I would have said, hey, you guys, why you guys do that? And they would say, oh yeah, we got these rules and stuff, and don't do that again. And then they would say, yeah, we're not gonna do that. Well, guess what? They don't care. You gotta care. You gotta take care of your stuff. So being external, having external locus of control, and hoping that other people are gonna prioritize your needs over their needs is not gonna happen. I'm sorry. So that's why you need to have external locus of control and be able to understand that everything you do is because it's your fault, so you can take the appropriate actions to correct it.
What have been your best resources for learning options trading, Alfredo?
That's a really good question, because there's this psychology book, Mark Twain, I think it is. I'm not sure his name. I really truly apologize, but he's like basically the godfather of trading psychology, and that's the best book. I would recommend that book to everybody. Do you know which book I'm talking about?
Mark Douglas, Trading Psychology or something?
Yes, the Mark Douglas psychology book. That's everybody should read that 5 times over. Hands down, if you guys do not read that, then you're missing out. So one of the books that helped me change my mindset.
And that book has been recommended by several other guests on this show as well. So it is truly, truly recommended. And I would, of course, suggest for people to also watch some of the other interviews we have on Theta Profits with different options traders and about their different strategies. Alfredo, thank you very much for joining and sharing your inspiring story.
Yes, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this interview.